Okay, I think we are good to go. We are live. I think I'm right on time for once. That never ever happens. It's amazing. Hold on a sec. I think I am at least. Everyone can please chime in and let me know that you see me or hear me. Awesome. Thank you very much. And it looks like we're good to go. Before I forget this time, who is going to be here for the duration? I will make you a moderator, if you don't mind, where you can oust any person who's saying too many really vile, vulgar things. I mean, you can use your judgment. If they're using a lot of curse words, a lot of racial epithets, if they're saying that the prequel movies are good, you can oust them. So, Chris, you look like you're going to be here for a while. I'm going to make you a moderator. All right, cool. So, for those of you who aren't aware of what the hell is going on, like I usually am at most points of the day, my name is Nick, this is Board Game Brawl, and we are doing a live Q&A. This is where you can ask me anything you like about board games, card games, role-playing games, although I don't know much about those at this point in my life, or anything unrelated to that, geek culture, life in general, politics. I don't really care. I will answer anything unless I'm just like not in the mood to answer that particular question. So if I don't even say your question out loud, that's why, because I do read them all. So what's up in the news with Board Game Brawl lately? Well, let's see. I think I've been pretty busy lately. There hasn't been as much content going up on the channel as I would like, of course. There never is. But there haven't been as many reviews in particular, and I am sorry about that. It's just my schedule has been crazy. I've been trying to get this top 100 done. We are now at the ultimate list, and I'm actually going to... really wanted to get that filmed last night. I got home and started like watching Star Wars, actually, the original, and which is still magnificent. I haven't watched it in like over 10 years, and it's just amazing. But I started watching that and pulling apart the newest Legendary set, which is Secret Wars Volume 2. And I started pulling apart all the cards and sleeving them and all that, because I sleeve my Legendary, so now I have to sleeve every expansion as it comes in. But I just started passing out, man. By the time the movie was over, I was just like, I could barely stay awake, so I had to call it a night, and then I woke up late this morning. So I'm going to probably film the final chapter of the Top 100 and the wrap-up immediately after this, and then start working on it. And I have a very limited time frame because my game group meets at 5, so it's going to be kind of frantic. I don't know if that's going to go up today or not. If it doesn't go up like today, it's going to go up at night, like late tonight after the meetup. I don't really care about like when videos go up. I figure people will find them if they're going to find them at all, so hopefully you guys don't mind that. But look forward to that. I think it'll be pretty exciting and cool. Tomorrow, hopefully, I'm going to do a bunch of reviews. I have at least 1 or 2 previews that I have to get done, although they may not necessarily post tomorrow. And then, yeah, a bunch of reviews. I think I'll go ahead and show you now because I always forget. Well, I don't know. I have Tail Feathers. It's kind of buried now. I don't know if that's going to get up this weekend or even Monday or Tuesday. It's kind of tough to get to the table. I need to play it again and again, but... Alright, everything's kind of buried right now. I'm hoping to get reviews of the new Amazing Spider-Man Dice Masters. I've kind of been giving up on reviewing that because they kind of felt like every review is the same. But there's some stuff to talk about with that, like the fact that WizKids no longer sells it online. So it's been out for a while, but I haven't been able to get it because I haven't been down to a store that would sell it. The Terrifying Girl Disorder, which is a really interesting and quirky, as they usually are, Japanese card game. So there's some cool reviews coming up. Do stay tuned. Really hoping to get the Legendary review up as quickly as possible. I'm going to be playing that like crazy. I'm going to play it tonight with my group, hopefully. Some people hate that game in my group, so it's going to be tough. But other people love it. And I'm going to play it solo like mad, exploring every single depth of it that I possibly can, because I love Legendary. So look forward to these different things. So let's get back to the questions. That's what you're all here for. I will do my best. New Killer Star 26. I'm not going to read everyone's name, sorry, but that will be the only one. So feel special, New Killer Star. What do you think 2015 will be remembered for as far as board games go? I think at this point it's pretty evident it is going to be remembered for these legacy-style games. And I don't just mean Pandemic Legacy, I also mean Time Stories, which is not a legacy game, but they're both examples of games that have a set replay value, incredibly thematic storytelling games with choices and choose your own adventure type storytelling elements. those were the two big controversial hit games. And at least Pandemic Legacy seems to be crossing over into mainstream culture. We've heard a news story interview on NPR with Rob Davio talking about it, and I think Pandemic Legacy is on store shelves like in Toys R Us and Target, right? I'm pretty sure that it is. It's huge. It is huge everywhere, not just in our own community. So that's going to be the big story. But so I think Pandemic Legacy on its own could be the big story, but I think within our community, it's these types of games that are going to be remembered the most for this year. And it depends on your perspective, whether that's good or bad. For me, that's a very good thing. I love it. Is there a Christmas movie you watch traditionally each year? I don't have a tradition set. I think you need to do something a number of years in a row to set a tradition. I do want to start doing that, though. I like watching Scrooged. I've probably watched that 2 years in a row now. And I watched it when I was a kid a lot. But I think that's a great movie. Die Hard. It's a cheat to call it a Christmas movie, but it is. It takes place during Christmas, and it's an amazing movie. There's Paul Scheer from The League, which is an okay show, but more importantly from How Did This Get Made, the podcast. He last year tweeted out a picture of a card that someone sent him for Christmas that has like a cartoon caricature of the dead body from Die Hard that says, "Ho, ho, ho, now I've got a machine gun." I love that. And then I actually was just looking last night. I actually have the tabs open on my computer still. Of like Christmas horror movies, which I thought would be pretty interesting. There's one called Rare Exports that I'd never heard of, but has humongously good ratings on Rotten Tomatoes that I may have to actually watch, as well as Gremlins. I haven't watched Gremlins in a very long time. So I would like to start a Christmas tradition of Christmas movies, including Star Wars again. Will we see a top 10 worst or most disappointing of 2015? No, I don't like doing that. I understand that I'm a highly critical reviewer, and I've never shied away from saying when publishers and designers do crappy things. But to make an entire list out of that, I feel is elevating that to a level that I'm not necessarily comfortable with. So I don't really want to do that. I'm going to do my top 10 of the year early next week, possibly, maybe mid the next week. In which case, maybe I'll mention what my most disappointing game of the year was. There's a lot of things I'll do like that. Like I also want to say like what my best expansion is. Not things I wouldn't make a list out of, but might be interesting to people. Who does Shots of Milk? Well, obviously Cookie Monster does. What is the most disappointing Kickstarter you've backed, and would you ever back a Merc Kickstarter again? Well, I think your questions are leading into each other on purpose. Was Myth the most disappointing Kickstarter? I don't know. I think there was bad signs about that Kickstarter from the start, but people like myself were enamored with the artwork and with the miniatures and with the idea of it. So it was really disappointing, but I don't know. Was it the most? 12 Realms was one of the... at the same time that I backed Kingdom Death Monster, which, as you know from my review, turned out amazing. It could have been the most disappointing thing ever for me. But at the same time, I also backed 12 Realms. And I was really excited about that. Kingdom Death was one that was just like a spectacle, right? I was constantly watching the updates. It was the very first Kickstarter or second Kickstarter I ever backed. I think Guilds of Cadwallon was the first. And I was enamored with it. I was like exciting every single day watching the stretch goals get killed for Kingdom Death. But that was a whole different experience. With 12 Realms, they were actually struggling to... They met their funding okay, I guess, but then they were struggling to hit the stretch goals. And that was a new type of excitement I hadn't experienced before, because I'm like every day on the message boards, or the comment section of Kickstarter, like, come on, we got to do this, and asking questions. It was more involved than I ever felt with the Kickstarter, and the final product ended up being completely bleh. They delivered on some things, like I thought the miniatures were okay, and I thought the artwork and the idea of it was fine, but the actual gameplay was so boring and dull. And had I just been paying attention more, I would have known that, and I wouldn't have been as disappointed, and I wouldn't even have backed it, but I was just involved with it so much. So maybe 12 Realms, just for sentimental reasons, is the most disappointing. Radek, I'm sorry, I'm not going to answer that question. Okay. In your last top 100 vid, for some reason, you reminded me of Mark Cuban. What would you prefer, separated at birth or older brother? Now, I know who Mark Cuban is, and I can kind of vaguely picture him and what he sounds like. I wonder what in particular made you think of him? I don't know, but maybe just the way I talk. I'll have to watch some interviews with him, maybe. I'm curious. What would you prefer, separated at birth or older brother? Older brother, because that would mean that I'm still in his good graces, I guess, and he knows me, and he'd be giving me money all the time, maybe, who knows, buying me very expensive gifts. Separated at birth, that would be kind of awkward. Like, hey, we've never met each other before. And that clearly seems like I'm trying to get to know him for his money. But, okay. Why do you think board gamers don't have negative reactions towards game expansions similar to the negative reaction video gamers often have towards DLC, downloadable content? Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of out of the video game culture at this moment, so I know people do complain about things like that, but I'm never quite sure what their reasoning is. Well, okay. I know that one thing is that people are always concerned that publishers and studios are putting out unfinished games, that they're just rushing to get a core game out there that doesn't have as much content as it should have, and then putting it out in downloadable content and patches and things like that. And that's a legit concern. With board games, I don't think people are as concerned about that, especially if it's just like a standalone game that can be played on its own. So, for instance, let's take Abyss, for instance. That's the most recent example of an expansion that I liked that I did a review for, right? Abyss on its own is fine. I thought it was a very good game, and it could have just stood as its own. It wouldn't have gotten as much attention. In fact, it's not getting as much attention even with the expansion, but it was perfectly fine. So they put out an expansion for it, and it was fun. And it was okay. I mean, and the parts of it were better than others, but I liked it overall. But it didn't change my opinion of the game. And I don't think it changed anyone else's opinion of it either, to either make them love it now or to, make them be like, oh, I hate this now. And I don't think at any point anyone thought like, oh, well, this should have all been in the base game. No, it would have been fine without this stuff. I think the reason I'm saying this and blathering on is because I think that most expansions for board games fall into that category. Or they're scenario content for games that are supposed to be scenario driven, like Descent, where you're just supposed to be pumping out more and more and more and more content. There is a upper limit of stuff that can be included in a box, and for a game like Descent, I think that Fantasy Flight did a very good job of getting you your money's worth for that game, especially nowadays when the price has been reduced. I can't really think of too many games where I'm like, oh, well, this should have been in the base game. There's definitely games that have been better with expansions, but who knows? I don't know. Sometimes you put out a game, it's very good, it's quality, you put it through its paces of playtesting with a lot of different people, but then when it gets out to thousands of people, then you're like, oh, wait a second. Unless we had kept this game in development for 5 years or 5 years more, we wouldn't have noticed some of the things that all these people playing all at once have noticed. And so I can't really fault publishers for that. I probably extrapolated way too much from that question, but there it is. Have you ever played the Legend of Zelda games, and do you think they would make a good board game? I have played the Legend of Zelda games. It's been a long time. I think the last one that I played was Majora's Mask. That should give you an indication of how long ago that was and how old I am. Despite my youthful, vigorous looks. Vigorous. So, I liked them. I liked that. Majora's Mask was okay. I was kind of just like, what am I supposed to be doing here? It felt weird to me. It didn't feel as straightforward as the other ones, which it wasn't supposed to be. But I liked Ocarina of Time. I liked Link to the Past. I even liked the old ones, like Legend of Zelda 1 or Legend of Zelda whatever. And what's the second one? What is the name of the second one? Link's Awakening. I thought that was better than most people give it credit for. It was just brutally difficult to me at that young age, though. Do I think they make good board games? I don't know. This goes back to the same thing I've always said about, like, when people ask me, do you think such and such anime, like Full Metal Alchemist, would make a good board game? No, because they're very character-driven and character-focused, and they're not about, like, for instance, Final Fantasy might make a good board game because it's about a cast of characters. Every Final Fantasy has, like, 1 or 2 characters that are the main focal point, but you have a whole bunch of different characters and different side stories, and that's why Mass Effect might make a good board game. And they'll all be the same type of board game, campaign-driven, scenario-based, set up a map and go through different missions. What would you do with Zelda? I don't know. I mean, that's where you start getting into that mass market game garbage where everyone plays Link and everyone's running around a board and everyone's trying to like just roll and move and grab objective cards, and then it's weird. But hey, that is a opportunity for innovation. Look at that as an opportunity. I hope someone takes that torch and runs with it. Make a good Zelda game. What's your favorite food and type of treat to eat? Favorite food? I don't know. I like sandwiches. Any kind of sandwich. I like breakfast sandwiches a lot, which you can probably tell. And treat, like, I don't know, sweet thing. I don't know. I'm not I'm not into candy as much as I was when I was a kid, obviously. If I really want to indulge and treat myself, I'll get a Blizzard from Dairy Queen, like Reese's Peanut Butter Cup Blizzard or something. But then I get sick afterwards, so I don't do that very often. What is your favorite position? I'm talking player position. First, second, etc. Get your heads out of the gutter. Ha ha ha. I don't like going first generally unless it is clearly known that going first is a definite advantage, where like a deck building game where that you want to get a card from the center before anyone else can get it, and so on and so forth. But even then, if you're talking about a game that is randomized like that, like Ascension or whatever, who knows when the card that you really need is going to come out. So usually if it's a new game, I want to go second or third and see what the other people do on their turn. Are you excited for the next Xenoshift Kickstarter? Yeah, I don't know much about it. I actually, just by coincidence, have some of the expansion packs for the first set. The Hive and the Psychogenics Lab, and I have the third one they put out, the Grafting Lab or whatever. I've got that in the box already. I have to try them all, though. And I don't know if I'm going to do reviews of them. Maybe I will. I don't know. It's hard for me to... I really have to be selective about what I review now because I have so little time. But yeah, I mean, Xenoshift's an awesome game. It was in my top 100 if you guys have been paying attention to that. Spoiler alert if you haven't been. But it was a while ago. It was like in the 40s to 50s, 50s to 60s, something like that. So yeah, another Kickstarter would be great. What was your favorite color or color combination in Magic? I loved blue and white. I think blue and white in the old days when I was playing were my favorite colors. And even when I got back into Magic briefly a few years ago when I met my my girlfriend at the time, yeah, I think blue and white was what I gravitated towards. White, I just love having creatures that banded together. I mean, there actually used to be banding, which was the most confusing thing ever, but there it is. And yeah, the weenie creatures that got stronger, the more of them you had, and overwhelm your opponent, easy to get out, were cool. I also liked blue's ability to counterspell, which used to be much easier. Still is, though. And I loved Merfolk, so I had a Merfolk deck back. I had a Merfolk deck when it was really, really difficult to have a Merfolk deck, and of course it sucked. When all you had was Lords of Atlantis to give them all buffs, and then like some random Merfolk that weren't very good. So now it's like really simple if you go through all the different sets. But those are my favorites. I didn't really mind the other colors, though. Green was fun. Green was always a good color, too. That would be my third. I think the only one I didn't like very much was red, just because red, the idea of dealing direct damage never appealed to me very much. I never liked the type of creatures associated with red, other than dragons, which, okay, fine. Black at least had some fun stuff. Black used to be a lot of fun for speed stuff with Dark Ritual. Used to be you'd splash black into your deck just to get Dark Rituals. Have you played New Salem? This game seems to have been mostly... Excuse me, stifling a sneeze. This happens every review. That's because I do these earlier in the day, close to when I wake up. And whenever I wake up, I always have like big sinus problems. I don't know. I'm sure you wanted to know those gross details. Have you played New Salem? This game seems to have been mostly disliked by reviewers, but has been killing it in my gaming group. I have it. I've played it once, and I actually picked up my own copy at the same time. I played someone else's copy, and I do want to play it again. I liked my one play of it. I'm not going to say I loved it, and that's one of the reasons why. Man, the colors for my lighting are all messed up. Maybe I need to turn some lighting off. That might get too dark. I'm sure that's too dark at this point. Let's take a look. Yeah, it's like way too dark here. That's probably better. Seeing how the sausage is made. There you go. I think that's better. But yeah, I will try New Salem again someday and review it. I thought it was interesting. The thing was, the first game of that were kind of like, okay, we technically know how to play, but now how do you play? Like, no one really knew what the best strategy was. I think that's why I definitely need to play it like 2 or 3 more times. Or if I play it the second time and realize, oh, this is terrible, then I'll stop. Have you read Ready Player One? As a child of the 80s, the book hit on all cylinders for me. No. I keep hearing people mention that book, and I have no idea what it's even about other than video games somehow, some way. And I think something has happened with my feed. Hold on a second. All right, there was a little hiccup. We seem to be okay. Well done to everyone who... Yes. Chris is pointing out and reminding me of the Stonemeyer auction. I did put up a little thank you message about that, but I'll say that again. Thank you so much for everyone who helped with the auction. I had the highest amount of thumbs and the highest bid, our entry in that Stonemeyer Games auction. Go and check that out. With the Stonemeyer Games Charity Auction 2015. Just Google that. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm going to probably be giving away my copy of Scythe to, well, we'll figure that out later. Why do modern video games prioritize online co-op over local co-op? And do you think this is a big reason why people might transition from video games to board games? That's a very good point. I think that's one of the reasons why, yes, I mean, board games dominated my life, and that's the main reason why I don't play video games anymore. But I also started to see this trend of producers, publishers putting a lot of effort into making their games online friendly. And I have no interest in that. I don't want to play with people who are I can't see in person. I don't want to play with children who are screaming curse words and racial epithets and sexist things into their microphone. I don't want to hear that garbage and nonsense. It has no appeal to me whatsoever. And the whole culture of video games, I think, has suffered because of it. As fun as it might be for people, and as much as a moneymaker it is for people. Make no mistake. Sorry. That's why people do it, is because of the money. That's why publishers will continue to pump money into it. If there wasn't an audience for it, then no one would do it. And I understand that, but nevertheless, it is leaving a lot of gamers like myself in the lurch because of it, because it's just not worth it for them to do it anymore. And I think that a lot of those same types of reasons are, why people are going towards board games instead, who want to have a geeky pastime, an immersive pastime, and hang out with friends, but don't want to do it over a microphone shooting Nazis. Would you recommend Time Stories as a 2-player game that seems to be at its best as a 3 or 4-player game, watching and reading the different reviews? Yes, I actually don't mind it as that. I have never ever minded. I think the main thing that reviewers gripe about the 2-player game of that or any other kind of cooperative game like that is when you have to take control of when 1 or 2 players have to take control of multiple characters. I don't mind that. I just don't. A good friend of mine, Kevin, who is huge into co-op games, he has like the #1 cooperative games geek list over on Board Game Geek. He hates that. It's one of his pet peeves about cooperative games. And I get it. I just don't agree. I don't have a problem with it at all. And I think that's the main reason. But here's the thing. Time Stories is better with more cooks in the kitchen. There's no doubt about it. The more people you have, the more immersive experience it is. And the more just decision making and role playing. So it is better with 3 or 4. I don't think it's necessary. I think you'll have quite a lot of fun playing it 2-player or even solo possibly. But I played it solo a little bit after so basically what happened was we completed scenario 2, the Marcy case, and it felt kind of anticlimactic to me. We did it all right, but it was just like, oh really? You can watch my spoiler review if you've played the Marcy case and want to know what I'm talking about. But I just wanted to go through it again and see, well, what if I had done this and this and this? And I played it solo, and it was okay, but it is weird. So solo, maybe not so much, but 2-player is fine. Biggest disappointment and biggest surprise of 2015? Let's wait for the top 10 list for the year. I'll probably say those. I want to give it some more thought. Sorry, my nose is all messed up right this second, and I do apologize for that. Will you be at the next Dice Tower Marathon? I will not. You really should... yeah, that's true. Do you think your favorite game represents who you are or is somehow part of your identity? I think that anyone's favorite game is going to tell you a lot about... I don't know. See, the thing that for me is I've never been... For any of the games on my top 100 list, I've never been bound by the idea that you can look at every single one of these games and put together like a portrait of what I am like as a gamer. Because I'm all over the place. And I think that for me, emotion and how I feel and tangential things that surround a game are going to be just as important as the mechanisms and the type of game and the theme of the game and all of these different things. So, in a way, it can represent my identity, but it's not... That's a really fascinating question, Nathaniel. I think there's a danger in saying that anyone should be bound, that what they are is represented in the games that they play, because for a while there's only a limited set of games that people could play, and as I think that's one of the wonderful things about modern board gaming is that as time has gone on, you have this incredibly wide breadth of games that you can play with all kinds of themes, so you can gravitate towards the games that you like, but still it's not enough to have a good theme or have good mechanisms. You have to have both together, and that's been a dangerous thing. So, because you always hear people say, well, I love this game, oh, except for this, this, and this. So if it's not a perfect game, people aren't perfect. I don't know, I'm rambling now, but that's a fascinating question, Nathaniel. I like that. Between all the video reviews, previews, etc., and hosting game night meetups at your house multiple times a week, do you fear you're going to get burnt out on the hobby? I think if that were going to happen completely and utterly, it would have happened by now, especially in the last few months, where I've really been burning the candle at both ends, going without sleep for long periods of time, trying to juggle both my day job and the responsibilities I have together with the channel, which has taken up every other waking hour that I have. And it hasn't happened yet. But it is clear that I'm going to have to find some way to slow down and to moderate my expectations of the channel. Whatever that might be. I was trying to do 6 reviews a week, plus whatever previews I had to get done. Now I might have to do 4 reviews a week, plus any, maybe start limiting myself to 2 previews or less per week. And just say, well, this is my schedule to the people who want to hire me as for previews. So I don't think that I'm going to get burnt out. I think I'm committed to this much more than I ever have been with anything I focus on in my life as far as hobbies and extracurricular activities. But I do feel like there is going to have to be an adjustment at some point because I can't do it. A friend of mine was very worried about me the other day and said, you can't keep living like this. You're a walking zombie during the day. So it is a concern. My mouse is not cooperating. Sorry, guys. Hold on. There we go. What miniature game would you be most likely to paint yourself? It's going to be either, it will be eventually someday when I have infinite time, Super Dungeon Explorer or Arcadia Quest, because not only are those games that I really enjoy, but the miniatures are big and bulky and seem like they'd be easier to paint. Lots of bright color palettes and not a ton of nuance unless I want there to be. Yes, that is the Cookie Monster. It's actually a shirt that I like a lot. I don't have it, though. I'm not a Sesame Street fan, so I never actually wear the shirt, but I thought it was very funny. What's the pen and paper game you are most interested in playing that you haven't played yet? Also, have you ever played the Deadlands RPG, and if so, thoughts? I have not. I believe Deadlands is isn't that what Doomtown is based off of? I thought maybe it was, but I might be getting names mixed up. I would really love to... Before I play anything new, I'd love to go back and revisit games that I've already played that I loved, like Shadowrun, the RPG, World of Darkness. The World of Darkness was so hard for me to get played because every game group it was always hard for me to start up RPG groups down here in Florida with people that I'd actually want to game with. Starting them was easy. With non-weirdos was tough. And then every World of Darkness game down here, whether it's just vampire or a mix of all the different tribes, seemed to be LARPing. And I was like, I finally just said, well, screw it. I'm either going to play or not. So I tried it, and sure enough, I hated it. I stuck with it for a month, like 4 sessions, and I was like, I'm out. This is too weird. I don't like it. I just want to sit at a table with some books and roll some dice. And I couldn't find a World of Darkness game that would do that. I miss Exalted. I know they came out with a new edition of that. I want to play that again. As far as new stuff, I've been curious about Numenera, especially since I had the Thunderstone Advanced set that was based in Numenera. I have some that I actually purchased, like OVA. I actually had an OVA RPG back in... it's an anime role-playing game back in like 2004, and this is actually the new version of it. I was shocked. I thought that like no one had even purchased that old one before. And now I would love to try the new one, but I can't. I backed it on Kickstarter, and it's just been sitting there collecting dust. Any other ones? Not really. I've heard, what's that one, Paranoia? I've heard good things about that. Nick, how long does an average game night last in your group? Depends on the night. If it's my particular group that I host at my place, our Saturday game group goes for like 8 hours. For the Wednesday night, it's more like 6 hours. For the other groups I'm involved in, it's all over the place. It could be all day. It could be just a couple of hours at a restaurant. What? I don't really understand that question. Have you heard of Fairy Skies? Someone is offering a meetup here to play. If so, what do you think of it? Is that an RPG? I'm assuming it's an RPG, but I have never heard of it. I will say that the Changeling faction in World of Darkness was one of my favorites. I'm just curious. What? I have let you lead me down a rabbit hole, and I can't find this game. Oh, here we go. Amazon. Oh, I see. This is that Golden Sky Stories. I heard of that. I almost backed out on Kickstarter, and then I'm like, I'm never going to get anyone to play this. So I think Golden Sky Stories is like, and this is like an alternate version for that, an alternate setting, is like a heartwarming type RPG. It's almost like a Miyazaki type RPG. And I'm like, that's really a great idea with very specific people. So, but I don't know. I mean, if... I would say figure out who these people are first, because you definitely, for an RPG, you want to make sure you like the people first, but it seems interesting if you have the time in the future to do it. What is your favorite Fantasy Flight game? Mine would be Talisman. Where are you at, Chris? You're letting Ryan keep posting? You haven't blocked him yet? Okay, I'm kidding. I think Talisman is awful, but my favorite Fantasy Flight game... I'm not sure that I can say anything. I'm trying to think, but nothing happens. No, I haven't done my top 10 yet. I don't know. Go and check my top 100. We're up to 10 at this point, and see what my highest ranked Fantasy Flight game is. I can't remember if I have one in my top 10 or not. I'm blanking right this second as to which publisher published what. So I don't want to spoil anything just in case, but whether I have or not, you can at least see what my number 2 is by looking through 11 and up. Why does each of your top 100 videos have a different view of your place? I don't know. Just want to try something different. It's not very interesting. My place is very small and tiny, but I thought it would be interesting to change things up a bit. Today I happen to be filming here instead of my other table because I had my laptop set up in front of my TV so I could connect it to my TV and watch MKV movies. That's the only way I could watch MKV movies on the big screen. If I have MP4s or AVIs, I can throw it on a flash drive and stick it into my smart TV, but I can't do that with MKV files. I have to hook my laptop up to my TV. And so I was watching the Star Wars trilogy, the original Star Wars trilogy, that way. The unspecialized original trilogy, which I was very happy to find. I do not want to watch that garbage special edition. Have you played with any of the new Battlelore armies? I haven't even played Battlelore 2nd Edition. It's been sitting on my shelf unplayed forever. What game do you want to play right now? Right now? Right now? Legendary with the new set, because it's right in front of my face, and I've been pulling all the cards apart and reading all of them, and I'm very excited. I will say I'm excited, although I'll also say I think the first set was better for me because there's more characters I liked. But because there's a lot of characters in this Secret Wars 2 that I don't even know who the frick they are. I'm like, okay, interesting. Some of them are really cool. Like I want to play as Spider-Gwen, and I want to play as Captain America with Devil Dinosaur. They're like their own hero team, which is interesting. Captain Britain, But others I'm like, oh, Phoenix Force Cyclops, Ruby Summers, Doctor Strange Punisher. I don't know. But still, it's more legendary, which means it's more amazing stuff. What do you think of having some formal or informal group overseeing game reviewers? Most critics and other hobbies have opportunities to further their education in the field in publications where they publish. Oh, I'm sorry. These are separate questions. I thought you were continuing your question. So, first question. What do you think of having some formal or informal group overseeing game reviewers? What do you mean by oversight? So, I think that there is a reason to pay attention to game reviewers and what they're up to if you feel that they're being too chummy with publishers, they're too tight-knit with certain designers, and trust me, I see this all the time. It is one of my biggest pet peeves with game reviewing in general. That's why I always try to keep a distance from the publishers and designers that I work with in any capacity. You send me a game to review, that's it. That's it. You hope that I give it a good review, but I can't be beholden to that. I've had really bad experiences getting too chummy with designers and having them just flip their shit whenever I don't give them the most attention or I say anything critical at all. And I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. I'm a reviewer. It's time to start not being beholden to anyone else. That's the type of thing that, yes, I think that it would be good to have some oversight on. Do you need to make an organization for that? I don't know. I think the fan community does a pretty awesome job of spotting that crap and pointing it out, though if it becomes too bad. I think right now I'm seeing evidence of that, but people are not saying anything because it's not like well known, but I think it might come to a head at some point. But I don't know. But that's one thing. But if you're saying like oversight because, well, why did he give this game a bad review when everyone else is giving it good reviews and there must be something wrong with his review? That kind of stuff, if it's just like, is this guy a good reviewer or not based on whatever criteria, that's a little more treacherous and dangerous, because the reason people go with reviewers is not necessarily, I mean, there's a whole bevy of reasons, and I don't think people should be like the media police just for whether or not a certain reviewer meets their criteria, what is a good reviewer. So it's a slippery slope thing. I think that there doesn't need to be any kind of formal group that does it. I think the community as a whole is still tight-knit enough and still watchdoggish enough that that sort of stuff will be sussed out if there really is a problem. If you have a problem with me, you are more than welcome to always and ever comment on my videos, through email, through the live Q&As, and I'll do my best to address it. But yes, your other question, most critics and other hobbies have opportunities to further their education in the field, art, film, etc., and publications where they can publish. Is that needed? Well, there are other opportunities. I mean, I could go to websites and probably publish articles if I really wanted to. I don't think I'm a great writer, and it's very... okay, let me correct myself. I think I am a good writer. I think it is incredibly difficult for me to write. I constantly get writer's block, and I'm far, far, far too critical of my own stuff. So I wouldn't do that. The hobby is still young enough now where there's not like a lot of opportunities for people in ancillary professions associated with the hobby to really branch out. One day that might happen. Maybe there needs to be... Is there like a movie critics guild or something? I'm wondering. Maybe that's what needs to happen. Maybe it needs to be people over... Oh, I don't know. I guess that's a slippery slope too. But I see what you're saying. There doesn't seem to be any kind of organization to board game reviewers now. That's part of that is YouTube, by the way. The nature of social media and online forums now is that anyone can do anything. So you have to rely on the cream rising to the top, hopefully. But it's still like the wild, wild west to a degree. The general consensus is that video games are just a fun waste of time. Do you feel board gaming falls into that same category? Sure. Yeah. I am not so high-minded about my hobby that I feel like this is something else. This is like, this is important. This is meaningful. This is This is life. This is going to help everyone in life. And if only more people would play board games, our quality of life in general would improve, is the natural extrapolation of putting too much importance in something. And I don't feel that's the case. It's important to me because now I am so wrapped up in it as a reviewer with my own channel that I have added responsibility to something that was just a hobby. But for you, for most of the audience that's listening to this, it's a hobby. It's very fun. It can be very important to you. It could be very important for ancillary reasons like, oh, I only get together with my friends when I play board games. Well, people need to have social outlets. It's a function of human life that you need to stay sane and be alive. So yes, then it becomes important. But that could be anything. So I don't think it's that video games are anything or like super duper important. I don't think it's that board games are super duper important, or reading books, or watching TV shows, or watching movies. It's being social and giving yourself an outlet to either be creative, which you can be even just when playing board games, or to just pass the time and not think about overwhelmingly important, stressful things, to relax. That is what's really important. And it just so happens that we have chosen to make that board gaming. And it's not a waste necessarily, because that implies that nothing was gained from it. But it's also not, I always hesitate to say that this is like high art, and that we need to like treat this as like this overwhelming like monolithic thing, because there's a danger in doing that and putting too much import in it, because then you start to lose some of the fun. I've always had to pull myself back from that whenever I'm doing my reviews and commentary, and just be like, let's remember what this is. This is something fun. This is something I loved doing, and that's why I decided to take it up to the next level. But if I ever lose sight of that and focus of that, then it turns into something else that is a bit dangerous to be involved in, mentally speaking. So it's somewhere between waste of time and super important, I guess. I have not had a chance to try Laurie Anderson's music. I'm very sorry. I do have it on a list of music to try. I already answered your question. I don't know what that means. Favorite adult cartoon? What do you mean by adult? Do you just mean like PG-13 or higher, like R rating? I mean, there's a ton. There's a lot of anime. It's very dark that I like. Berserk and The Guyver. You can watch my top 10 list of anime. There's a few really dark ones on there. A lot of those are PG or G rated, though, to be honest. Because those tend to be the best stories that are more relatable. But as far as like maybe American cartoons, I really liked American Morty, which is definitely R-rated. I'm kind of shocked at some of the stuff they get away with, even on Cartoon Network's Adult Swim. Rick and Morty is amazing. Archer is amazing. Although Archer, I've stuck with Archer. It has started to grate on me a bit. Some of the characters and jokes that they make are just kind of like, all right, I'm kind of sick of that. Any idea when the next Time Stories expansion comes out? I heard that it was first quarter of 2016. Other than that, I don't know. I'm hoping I get sent an early copy of it, but they haven't seemed too keen on sending me the expansions for Time Stories. One of the reasons I was able to get the scoop on Time Stories is because they sent me the base game first, but the expansions are a whole other story, because how do you really review them? I did, but it was a spoiler review, so not many people watched it. Thank you, Rex, for getting in trouble with your wife to watch this. I do appreciate that. I'm not going to tell you not to do it either. Do it and get in trouble. I don't think I actually own the Ashardalon set of the D&D adventure games. It's the one I don't own, because honestly I'm kind of on the fence about whether I'm going to keep them again. So many other games do what those games do that it's kind of tough. Well, this is an interesting question. Nick, loving the top 100 list so far. Any chance you could post a list of all the games on Board Game Geek? That list already exists and has been updated every time I put out a list. Go and check out, I don't know what you... Yeah, just Google search Board Game Brawl Top 100 Games 2015, and you should get the Board Game Geek list. It's updated every time I put out a list with a reasonable span of time. I number the entries. They're numbered like a Board Game Geek list would be, from 1 to 100, or now it's 1 to 90. But I've done them in descending order. So you start off with... So the first entry you see is entry number 1. number 100, whatever it was, and then it goes down. Lost Legacy was number 100. So there's no spoilers. You can go down the list in order, and I've also linked to all the videos as well. So go ahead. And a friend of mine from my gaming group, John, has been nice enough to put some summaries underneath each Geek List entry. Love the shirt. How do you feel about Gravity Falls having one more episode, then be over for good? Well, I haven't been keeping up with it, so I'm okay with that for now because I feel like I still have a lot to watch. And then when I get to the end of it, I'm going to be very sad because I know there won't be more coming. But I am very appreciative of anyone who decides I am done with this show. The show is popular enough that I could keep going, but I had a story to tell, and I'm ending it. This was always supposed to be about a summer in these kids' lives, and the summer's over. So what are you supposed to do? Thank you, everyone, for the kind words. I don't read the comments that just say, hey, Nick, I'm happy for what you do. Thank you. But I do read them, and I'm very appreciative of them. So thank you for all the kind words, folks. When is the top 10? That will be coming up later today or tonight. Late tonight. Wow, I'm catching up. Are there not as many people watching? Or maybe I'm just way behind the questions. 39 people. That's a little bit down from the previous weeks. It's getting closer to the holidays, so I would expect that. People are doing more things. What are your thoughts on... I cannot speak in acronyms. I don't know what that is. HIR... What? I don't know what that is. Have you tried the Run, Fight, or Die in the new Big Box Kickstarter expansion? So, I got the Big Box expansion. I have everything for Run, Fight, or Die except for the second Super Mutant miniature, which just looks grotesque and awful and stupid looking. I have the first one, though. And I gotta be honest, my appreciation for that game has plummeted. I gave it an okay review. I don't think I gave it an overwhelmingly good review, but I gave it a fairly good review. And I stand by that. But as a whole, I just feel like that game is not that great. I'm starting to wonder if Richard Lanius is maybe not a designer for me. Let me put it that way. Like Eldritch Horror, for instance. Eldritch Horror replaces Arkham Horror. And there would be no Eldritch Horror if there wasn't for Arkham Horror, which was designed primarily by Richard Lanius. But I feel like Eldritch Horror surpasses that game in so many ways. And other games... I don't know. I feel like that game is just not great. And it's an example of me just not appreciating the games of Richard Lanius that much anymore. And I think I'm going to be getting rid of it, even though I have everything. Am I ever coming to Europe or UK for a con? I would love to come to Europe or the UK for any reason, but I haven't been going to any cons and probably will not be. So I would not expect that. What do you think about Shadows of Brimstone now? Personally, I don't like the Flying Frog policy about making plenty of minis and just screwing other games. Yes, I know money is money, but I like Shadows of Brimstone. I gave it a good review, at least the set that I played, which was the Swamps of Death. And I didn't keep my copy, not because I didn't like the game, but because I had multiple dungeon crawling games. I had to decide which one I was going to keep. And I decided to go with other games like Descent and Level 7 Omega Protocol and even Arcadia Quest to a degree as the games that were campaign style that I wanted to keep. And it was also an enormous box. It was grotesquely huge. And I didn't want to commit to getting more and more stuff for that game and putting all the miniatures together. That's a big problem for me with that game. I'll do it for Kingdom Death, but I'm not going to do it for many other games. And I think that I understand what you're saying. I never really thought of it in that way. But yes... it is tough when a company decides to put a lot of effort into one game or brand of game to the exclusion of all others. And yeah, I would love to see another expansion for Conquest of Planet Earth. That's the only other game from Flying Frog I actually like a lot. I suppose if I was a fan of their other ones, I'd be upset that they're not really doing anything with those anymore. Who knows? Although there's probably enough content for Last Night on Earth that you're good for a long time if you love that game. Yeah, it's weird. They're putting a lot of fish into that barrel, but it did make them a lot of money on Kickstarter, and if they ran another Kickstarter, they'd probably make just as much money, if not more, so it's hard to complain. I found loads of Kickstarter projects are... I'm correcting people's grammar as I go, by the way. So if I sound like I'm halting and stammering, it's because I'm trying to say these things properly. I found loads of Kickstarter projects are taking the Cool Mini or Not path with unlocking stuff on the go and giving exclusives and paid add-ons. These projects seem to be successful. Why are you against exclusives? First and foremost, I think that it is something of a myth that in order to be successful, you need to have exclusives. Super Dungeon Explorer, the last two Kickstarter projects they did for the Forgotten King and for the Legends, made over $1 million. In fact, the first one beat Arcadia Quest, the first Arcadia Quest. Now, the second Arcadia Quest expansion easily beat by like 500 grand the last Super Dungeon Explorer Kickstarter, but that was because it had a built-in audience and so on and so forth. But I don't think that you need exclusives to be successful. Stonemaier Games is another perfect example of that, and they're huge success on Kickstarter. And I think that exclusivity is just taking advantage of the worst, basest instincts of gamers and geeks in general. And yes, these are, for the most part, grown people who can make their own decisions about whether they back something or not, but that doesn't mean that we should encourage that kind of behavior. And by the way, let me be very clear, I love Cool Mini or Not because the quality of their games is amazing. They put out fantastic games of the highest quality, but I will go to my grave saying that I dislike and disapprove of the idea of exclusives. I think it's a terrible idea. I think that if they wanted to actually put some effort into it, they could come up with any number of other things to incentivize people to pledge just as much. Deep discounts on the product, which is not really the case right now. I could actually, despite the fact that they have an early bird, and despite the fact that you can get them for slightly less than MSRP, I could still buy any Cool Mini or Not game much less at Cool Stuff brand new than I can on Kickstarter. So they're not doing that. They could be incentivizing with lower prices. They could be incentivizing with alternate sculpts of characters that other people can't get. They can be incentivizing with delayed time. Like, okay, these miniatures are not exclusive, but you're going to have them for like a year ahead of when everyone else is. Okay? They could be doing any number of these other things, but they don't. They want to take the easy way out. And yes, money is money. But again, this is one of those things where it's a game of chicken. Cool Mini or Not could just say, we're not doing exclusives anymore. Here's our alternate methods of getting people to come and pledge. And that's how we're going to do things. But then other people are going to be like, well, but we're going to do exclusives because we don't want to go through the work of doing that. And then we'll get people to pledge on ours. Ha ha ha. Whereas if everyone just said, we're not doing exclusives, you'd still get, and we're just going to do these other alternate methods, you'd still get just as many people pledging because people like the idea of kickstarting games. Nobody seems to understand that. And so we have the situation where it's a self-perpetuating thing of the shitty exclusivity trend, which is just not a good thing, ever. You will not talk me out of that. Coming from the printing industry, do you think you are a better judge of component quality than other reviewers? Yes and no. I think I'm a pretty good judge when it comes to card stock and boxes and books and rule books and things like that, but not so much with miniatures because, of course, that's not what I print. That's not what I've ever had any experience with. So when it comes to miniatures, I can be schooled all day long, and I'll say, well, that looks like a pretty good miniature to me, and then a miniatures gamer will come over and say, that's freaking garbage. Look at this stuff. Look at this. It's got, it's nothing. I mean, it's got all these creases and lines, and there's flash all over it. It looks like garbage. So I'm like, wow, it looks like what it's supposed to look like, and it's better than a cardboard token. That's all I needed. So some areas yes, some areas no. Hey Nick, did you get a copy of Secret Wars Volume 2? You must not have been here from the beginning because yes, I do. And I have been watching the Star Wars episodes, only episodes that are worth mentioning, at the same time as pulling about the cards, sleeving them, and then I'm going to play it solo. Speaking of World of Darkness, I think that people are sick of typical fantasy games, dragons, goblins, orcs, and such. Do you think there is space for more vampire games? Can you recommend some? I have Fury of Dracula and Touch of Evil. I'm so sorry about that second game. Maybe someone can remove you from that. Never mind, I'm just giving you garbage for liking Touch of Evil. Yeah, I don't know that I have any other recommendations, actually, because there haven't really been that many good vampire games. There is a game based off of Vampire the Requiem, Vampire Prince of the City, which I've actually saw some reviews that were like, yeah, it's okay, and other people saying, yeah, it's garbage. But you haven't really seen much about it, so. And the other World of Darkness board games were not great. There was 2 for Exalted that were both like, time to go. So there's that's another area that is rife for innovation. The only other recommendation I can do is to make a vampire deck for Magic the Gathering, which is pretty easy to do now. The High Caliber Ops expansion is out for Shadowrun Crossfire. Did you get it for review? Do you think the game needed an expansion considering how much play it already had built in with the leveling? Well, I don't think that the game had that much play built in. I thought it did need an expansion. I am getting it. It should be showing up in the mail today. Not as a review copy. I had to buy it. Just so that people know, most of the games I get, I still need to buy myself. I've been very lucky that I have a good contact at Asmodee, which means that because Asmodee has dominion over so many studios now, I do get a lot of games for review, but definitely not the majority by any stretch. But I'm excited for it, and I like Shadowrun a lot. I don't know that it needed like a huge expansion, but it needed something. The game has been missing something, and I'm happy that they're finally paying it attention again, because how long has it been out? I feel like it was mid last year that it came out, and it's been a while since they've had any kind of major release for it, if at all. Why haven't you reviewed Rum and Bones yet? That is the question, isn't it? I have Rum and Bones and one of the expansions sitting on the shelf off camera, behind the camera, and it was sent to me for review, together with World of Smog on Her Majesty's service. And I haven't gotten it to the table, and I feel awful about that, and I don't know. It's just Rum and Bones is partially because it's a 2-player game. Yes, I know you can play it in teams, but I've heard from everyone that is not the way to play it, and I want to play the game the way it is really meant to be played, and that has been difficult for me. But I do want to try it. Yes, that is the version of Star Wars that I have, the despecialized Star Wars, because essentially it does feel a little awkward. If I'm not mistaken, what's happening with the ones from the user Harmy, he despecialized Star Wars. He took the Star Wars special editions, cut out all the garbage, like the extra stuff that they put in to make the screen look like some sort of 2-year-old's fever dream that just made it look like junk. Kept the HD quality other scenes and just spliced in the scenes from the old theatrical versions, which is good, but it also creates like jarring situations where it clearly looks like this isn't HD anymore. But overall, I mean, it's way better than just trying to watch the special editions, which are junk. Which artist do you think most consistently adds the most value to the games that he or she works on? Oh my gosh. There are so many fantastic board game artists. That is one thing that I think the board game industry gets right as a whole. Yes, there are games with horrific artwork, okay? Really bad. But there are so many other games where they're like, you know what? We need to make the artwork look good, and they at least do that, even if the game itself is bad. But there are so many games that I have that just have wonderful artwork, and that's one of the things I love about them. The artwork of Xavier Jeffrey Duran for Abyss and for Seasons, and Nayade for Seasons, and Lords of Zidit, and Shinobi Wata, and Piero, who does so many. I mean, the thing about Piero is I've only really started noticing how amazing his work is in this past year. But then as I was doing my top 100, I'm like, oh, he did the artwork for this, and Ghost Stories, and he did the artwork for this, and that game's amazing, and this, and this, and this, and he's like, it's fantastic. The guy is a wonder kind of artwork, so he's great. He adds a lot to it. Vincent Dutrait is amazing. It does sadly seem to be that it's a boys' club, and I say that because you made the point of using the split pronoun there, if he or she. But it doesn't seem like there's a lot of strong female artists that I have noticed in games. In Dixit, that is not necessarily the case. I think at least a few of the artists in Dixit are female, and Dixit has universally wonderful art. But Dixit is all about the art. That makes it kind of a cheat to say that. But I think that the artwork makes a game. It does. Artwork can make or kill a game. It's still about the game mechanics. It's still about the theme, but it is such an important thing nowadays because the level of the game has risen up so high. All right, guys, it's 1 o'clock, so I want to wrap this up soon because I really do have a lot of work to do. I can't let this go too long. Any expansions for the DC deck builder you'd like to see in the future? They've done pretty much everything I'd want to see. They should do what they're doing with Secret Wars and make like a big Crisis on Infinite Earths expansion. Nick, have you ever played Ashes with 3 or 4 players? I did try the multiplayer one time before I did my review and was, like I suspected, not impressed. For the same reason I wouldn't play Summoner Wars with more than 2 players. The same reason why I don't want to play Rum and Bones with more than 2 players, because those games, I believe, are not meant to be played that way. They are shoehorning those game methods in there in order to get more people to buy the game. So if you look on the side of the box for Ashes, it says 2 to 4 players. It's a 2-player game. They should have 2 with an asterisk. Have you tried Bottom of the Ninth? No, I took a pass on that one. Sorry, I'm kind of skipping questions because I do want to wrap this up and I want to see if there's any like really cool questions that... How much time would you give a dependable publisher in delivering a Kickstarter game? I would give them a lot of time. I am much more lenient and lax on when Kickstarters are delivered than most people. I don't start to worry until they're like 6 months late, honestly. How often do you get to play Alchemist? Not very often. It's been quite a few months since I played it last, but when I did play it, I loved it. I am way behind on questions. I am so sorry, guys. I wish I had more time. I really don't. Why does the Game Boy Geek mostly review or like family style or party board games? Do you know if he likes dungeon crawlers like Descent or heavy Ameritrash games as a whole? I think he reviews the kind of games that he likes and he's inclined to enjoy, which is what you should do. There are games, I mean, look, I try to do a wide variety of games on my channel, but I think that you will notice that when I do a game that is outside of my comfort zone, it is very rare that I actually enjoy it that much. And I inevitably end up feeling bad that I ever reviewed it in the first place because I'm like, I knew I wasn't going to like this game. So what necessarily was the purpose of the review? That's why I'm not going to review a war game. And that's why I will review some Euro games, but not like super heavy-duty ones. And I think that the Game Boy Geek is staying in his comfort zone. And more power to him. Because when you do that, when you specialize in something, it really increases your capability to really pick apart and discern a game. If I was curious about whether or not a game would be suitable for, parties, families, deduction games, all of these things being his specialty, I would absolutely go and check out one of his reviews on that game first, because he's going to be able to really pick it apart and tell me what works, what doesn't, who it's good for. Just like I would hope that, I don't think I'm like an uber specialist in anything, but if people were curious about a highly thematic game, a dungeon crawling scenario game, a deck building game, that maybe they would check out my channel as one of their first stopping points. You should always watch multiple reviews, but maybe they'd come to mine first because they're like, hey, he plays a ton of these. You should always go with people who are really good at something, because it's not just, at least in my case and in Dan King's case, we may be really in the wheelhouse of those types of games, but that doesn't mean that we give them a pass. It means we're even more critical of them and want them to be good. And that's, I think, the most important thing to have in a reviewer, is that you want someone who is not ever going to just say, well, this game does what I look for in a game for the most part, I guess it's fine. You want to be able to say, how does this game innovate? How does this game do anything different? Is it too similar to this game? Why wouldn't I just get that game instead? You want someone super critical, even if it's a game series that they typically love. And yes, this is Gravity Falls. I'm just taking random questions before I end it now because I feel so bad for ending it with all these questions, but I have to stop sometime. Let me pick one other good question. Maybe I'm not that far behind anyways. Yes, you're right. Thank you so much for pointing that out, Lewis. Fernanda Suarez did the artwork for Dead of Winter and for Ashes, and it's amazing. That's another example of someone who is raising the bar for artwork and board gaming as a whole. And she's a female artist, which we need more of. But she's a great shining example of that. And when I look at artwork like that, I'm kind of like, you know what? If your artwork isn't even within the ballpark of the art of her or Piero or Nayade, don't bother. Just make it a blank like text game. Can I give you a brief summary of Gravity Falls? 2 kids go to spend the summer with their weird uncle. Hilarity and weirdness and great storytelling ensue, is all I will say. So, okay, we're going to close out with this question. How good would you say 2015 is compared to the last 5 years? I think this was a phenomenal year in gaming. There were obviously a few games that stood far above the others, but even so, even if you take those games out of the mix, I still think this year could stay standing head and shoulders. Okay, I'm getting everything confused. I think I keep mixing up game and year. This year could stand on its own, toe-to-toe, is what I meant to say, with any other year in gaming. I think it was amazing, even without the big heavy hitters. With the big heavy hitters, incredible year of gaming. Really, really is. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I got into an argument with a reviewer once. Not really an argument, because I just said, well, I'm not going to waste my time. Where someone was talking about how the golden age of board gaming was like 10 years ago or 15 years ago. When like Settlers of Catan came out, and Carcassonne was coming out, and Kalis, and all these other games. And I find that to be the most absurd statement ever. We are in the golden age of board gaming. If you think we're not, you are not paying attention. Not only the quantity of games coming out, the quality of games coming out, the number of games that are at least good or amazing that have been coming out in the last 3 years has been off the charts. And the amount of attention given to board gaming, the amount of people in the industry, the amount of quality talent in, like, again, I say, artwork and in graphic design and in all these other, in component quality, all these different things together are just raising up to a bar I've never seen before. And if you say that we're not in the golden age of board gaming, you are sentimental for the year that you got into board gaming, is what I believe. Because we're in it. This is it. It's never going to get better than this. It's only going to hopefully maintain, is what I believe. So that will be my closing controversial thoughts. But thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for sticking with us. I really appreciate the time I get to spend with you guys and gals every single week. It's a lot of fun for me. My favorite part of the channel by far, to the point where I thought about doing it more than once per week, but I think there's such a thing as too much of a good thing. So stay tuned. We're going to have the closing segment and wrap-up of my top 100, hopefully today. And then you'll be seeing some really cool reviews, hopefully very, very soon. So thank you so much for watching, everyone, and have a fantastic day and a great holiday season. Take care.